days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. We're talking about a need. 49ers fans are all about this need needs to be filled. They weren't questioning Ambry Thomas initially at the end of the season, but now they feel Ambry Thomas may not be the guy opposite of Emmanuel Moseley.
What happened?
They watched film.
But they would have known that if they'd been watching film the whole time.
Hey, whoa. Just know, Ambry Thomas has some seasoning to do. So there are some big-time free agents that, of course, everyone would love to get. Some are actual potential, some maybe not.
But you're right there. These same people won't be saying that if Trey struggles a little bit early, will they?
I hope not.
God, I hope not either, man. Gee, many Christmas almighty.
I think that some people understand where Trey will be, and I think some will be very just happy with him playing well. But I think there will be people, and some of them were Trey guys. Some of them were definitely Jimmy people that are going to be very upset, or and like to kind of point fingers at Trey if he doesn't play well right away. But I think
there's also going to be people on the other side, right? If Trey plays well, they're going to be pointing the finger the other direction as well.
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of finger pointing going on in San Francisco, I hate to break it to you all, but finger pointing gets us nowhere.
No, I think what we all should do is take a thumb and point it right at the 49ers logo and be like, no, that's what we're about here. We're about the Niners.
I was going to say that I can't even find it anymore. Who cares, Ant? Who cares? It's here.
To be honest, I don't care about finger pointing. What I do care about is what the 49ers are going to do with their position players and free agency, because it's upon us.
Accurate, and it is upon us, and there's a lot of names. There's a lot of names in the quarterback room. There are the market for corners is large this year. There's a lot of free agent corners. But just because there's a lot of something, Ant, doesn't mean there's quality. It just means the quantity is high.
Or scheme fits. I mean, sometimes there could be guys out there that just don't fit your scheme, so it doesn't make sense to bring them in.
Accurate.
So the pool is definitely diluted by that, of course.
Okay, so let's start with names that the 49ers may be familiar with, and 49ers fans may be familiar with. We'll dip our toe into this very large free agent pool of corners, and starting off with Dante Johnson, a very familiar phrase.
We're starting with Dante Johnson.
We'll start with Dante Johnson. Start very low on the totem pole and work your way up. There's nowhere to go from here but up.
Okay, Dante Johnson is not going to be one of the first people the 49ers sign.
Correct.
He'll probably end up being on the 90-man roster.
Agreed.
Only because it seems like that's what happens every single year. He ends up finding his way to the 49ers.
Correct.
But I think that there could be value for him on the open market on a super cheap deal, maybe in like the third or fourth wave of free agency, that one of these teams might go snatch him up because of the flexibility now that he's proven he can play inside, outside, and safety.
Accurate.
You need that versatility, especially with like your sixth corner. So I think maybe he will be on the market for a few teams, but I would kind of expect him to be back in San Francisco.
I would expect that as well, and that's kind of why I wanted to get him out of the way first, is because it's one of those ones that's going to be a little bit longer before Dante Johnson gets a signing. He's not going to be one of the guys that signs day one right away when we get to that March 13th tampering
14th.
Time period. 14th, excuse me. But the 14th, that Monday, he's not going to be one of the first guys that signs. He's going to be a little bit further down the road because there's going to be other names that are a little bit more important, and we're working up that list right now. Another name that 49ers fans might be familiar with is Ahkello Witherspoon.
Yeah. I think Spoon being out there's always the possibility of them bringing him back because he did, have some traits that they liked, but I don't know if he's going to want to come back, because with Ahkello Witherspoon, he was definitely not happy with how the 49ers handled him. He felt like he should have been, given the mantle and been one of those guys. Then he goes up to Seattle and expects to do something, and they trade him before the season even starts. He did play admirably in Pittsburgh, but I don't know what kind of market's going to be there for him. But if you're looking to bring somebody in, he's got length, he's got athletic ability, he's always seemed to have the talent. It's just he's never been able to have it completely translate to the field. You might kick the tires on him. I think the 49ers, would go with somebody that they know for a depth reason. When you're looking to improve your cornerback position, you don't got a lot of money. You have to find cheap options, and then options you're familiar with also help.
Correct, and it's an option you're familiar with. He does have length and other positive athletic traits and other abilities. And my biggest concern with Witherspoon has always been the confidence level. It seems like when he's confident and when he's playing confident, he's lights out. But it seems like that confidence is fragile. It wavers. And when it wavers, he drops off completely and he falls off the face of the earth in a drop off. It's not like he he's there in the right spot and a guy just makes a great play sort of thing. It's, there's 5 yards of separation. You're going, where the heck is Akilla Witherspoon? What happened to him? Why is he not in position? And that's one of my biggest things with him. It's so hot and cold, it feels like at times. So is it a possibility? 100%. Is it the best option? Absolutely not. There are tons of other names. The Niners can not kick the tires, but they can go after some other guys. They can look at some other places, and one of those other places, a guy who's played very well for the 49ers is Jason Verrett.
Yeah, Jason Verrett, I think, is going to be somebody the Niners are going to go after because John Lynch said so. When John Lynch says that they're going to, look to sign somebody, then that means he's definitely on their radar, and he makes sense. 1 year, $3 million seems to be kind of the going rate for what Jason Verrett could do for the 49ers. He wants to give it another go. I mean, and that's part of it, right? He has to decide mentally that he's ready to give this another run because recovering from another ACL, that's got to wear on you. So I think the 49ers would go that route. He's a cheap option. And if you can get any sort of production like you got from 2020, if he can duplicate 2020, you feel really good about a cornerback room that consists of Emmanuel Moseley on one side and Jason Verrett on the other. I think they want to make other moves as well, but Jason Verrett is a nice piece to have, especially because he improves that room. He is better than Ambry Thomas. And that's what you're trying to do. You're just trying to put the best 53 together. Making sure Jason Verrett is on the roster is one of the ways to do that.
You are not wrong, Ant. It is one of the easiest ways to do that. In terms of depth, especially, it's a good thing. Listen, with all the injury stuff, I don't think anyone here, I don't think most 49ers fans, and I know the 49ers themselves are not looking at Jason Verrett as the solution at the cornerback, but he is depth. He is a guy that you can count on that you're hoping can be a solution. But I don't think you can put a lot of eggs in the Jason Verrett is going to be healthy for a whole season and be cornerback one basket.
Well, you don't have to because you have Ambry Thomas.
Correct.
I mean, you did. You insulated yourself last year with Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir. However we think that their improvement was, we know that Ambry Thomas definitely improved enough to get on the field and play well at times in the playoffs. Those are big moments for a young guy, and he stepped up in a big way. But you could see that there was definitely some things that he needed to handle as far as the mental aspect of the game because he didn't sag in certain spots, and he made it tougher for Jaquiski Tartt and the safeties to be in the right positions, and those were problems, and those were in zone covers, and those are feel and things that he's got to learn. So, yeah, young players have to learn these things, and maybe he's not ready to go, but a healthy Jason Verrett is a vast improvement over him. In fact, a healthy Jason Verrett is better than Emmanuel Moseley. I know the numbers for 2021 were better for Moseley than they were for Verrett in 2020. One big difference, an elite pass rush in 2021. 2020 had no elite pass rush, which means Jason Verrett was out there longer, covering longer, and still did a very good job.
And he did an incredible job, Ant. But now let's get to not 49er names. We still got one more that we can talk about, but we can talk about Mr. K1, the Shark, in a little bit. Let's focus on some bigger name guys that are out there and some possibilities that are out there that I think early on, you and I would have agreed that one of the first guys that we want to talk about, and a couple of these guys, we're probably going to get too much money, but it looks like there's options and possibilities and doors that are cracking open, and opportunities there. Who's the first guy that you're thinking of that's kind of a bigger name on this list of free agent corners that you think the Niners are interested in going after, maybe because you've heard reports or just a feeling?
Bigger name or biggest name?
Let's go with biggest name.
Stephon Gilmore. I think this one has been rumored for a couple years now, and then you get Matt Miyoko has been consistently saying he believes the 49ers will kick the tires on him, even at $14 million. I think that is going a long way from what, is a kind of a different attitude from the 49ers. But this is why we put a poll up, on our Twitter asking, would you rather have back DJ Jones and Arden Key or Stephon Gilmore? Because there is a conversation to be had about the 49ers defensive line consistently developing players. Could you develop a player and then ultimately bring in Stephon Gilmore? The reason that it makes a little bit of sense for the 49ers is how they can structure the contract. We know Nick Bosa's contract's going to, go in a couple years from now and be a huge number. But you could have Stephon Gilmore on like a 2-year deal. Right now, everyone's kind of saying it's going to be a 2-year deal, about $28 million, so $14 million a year. If you lowered his cap number for this year, something the Niners have done consistently with Trent Williams and other players that they've signed recently, and then have a more inflated number, you could actually make this work. And if they do something like Alex Mack, where it's a 3-year deal, but it's more than likely a 2-year deal, and they put some of that money at the end that's not guaranteed that you can kind of cut off and not have it affect your cap too much, I think there is a way to maneuver this. If the 49ers could get their D-line the way it is, with a lockdown corner like that, I think it would not only change the defense, it would make them one of the best defenses, probably the top defense in the league, because he's that darn good. You could run man covers like you want to. You could do a lot of things that you want to do. He is a legit all-pro corner in this league. I think that would be the best situation for the 49ers, but are they willing to shill out that cash and bring Stephon Gilmore in, because that would be a little bit of a shift of mentality and focus the way they've been handling it. We'll see. We'll see if that is, but the fact that it keeps getting talked about means there's at least potential there.
It's being considered, right? It's being looked at. It's being evaluated. It's being processed. You and I both didn't think there's a possibility because $14 million is too much money for a cornerback, the way the 49ers build a defense, the way the 49ers have prioritized building a roster. Cornerback, shockingly enough, Cutback, Crew, and the Faithful, has not been at the top of the priority list for the San Francisco 49ers the last 4 years. Just hasn't. However, this is continually being discussed. It's continually being brought up. His name continues to pop up in circles. It continues to get connected to San Francisco. And whether that's people doing it or the fact that, John Lynch and them haven't come out and ruled this out and said no to this, or, as much as we like guys like Stephon, it just doesn't make sense with how much money. The fact that none of this is being quashed means it's open. It's on the table. And I think the Niners realize that, right? If you can go out and get a guy who's a little bit older, who, he wants to get paid big money, and you might be able to backload some of that contract, put it into a signing bonus, things of that nature, and spread that out over the lifetime of the contract and lower the cap number immediately now, short term, and present options for that person to win a Super Bowl, compete, contend, show that he's still elite for a year and stay healthy for a full year now, and then be able to go off and capitalize somewhere else in free agency the next year or a couple of years down the road at 32, especially if he's still playing at a high level at 32. Someone will be willing to pay him a good chunk of money for 3 years and pay him that $14, $15, $16 million range that he's hoping to get. But I don't think either one of us believes that he's going to come in at $14 million a year this year.
No, I think it'll be a lower cap number this
Correct.
year, because the 49ers have the rookie pay scale, and of course you have, the life of players' contracts don't go that far. There's only 2 players that are going to be on a contract, for instance, in 2026 currently, and that's Fred Warner and Trent Williams. So the 49ers have a lot of decisions to make in the meantime. There are going to be players that are going to get extended that far. Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa. But if you make this contract work the right way, it can coincide with some of the other contracts coming off the books, and it maybe won't be such a bad deal next year. But the thing is, you get somebody like Stephon Gilmore in, and all of a sudden you don't have to worry about DeAndre Hopkins going off for double-digit catches and over 200 yards. The things that were happening to the 49ers at times, he can help negate a lot of that. And the way that Mosley played last year, not giving up touchdowns, the way that Jason Verrett played in 2020, all of a sudden you bring these guys back, and then you have Ambry Thomas, who's still developing. To me, it starts to really change the makeup of that DB room, and I think change the makeup of the defense, because now you can count on those guys to cover a little bit longer, put more pressure on the front of the other opposing team, because now they have to be able to hold off these defensive linemen for longer.
And maybe even change up your rotation with your D-line. Because there's certain times, right, where you're putting guys out there for maybe extended periods a little bit longer than you'd like to, because you feel you have to get after the quarterback to help the secondary a little bit. Maybe that rotation now gets a little deeper and guys get some extra snaps, so guys are more rested.
I think these guys are in an arm race, too. I don't think they're going to say they're going all in right now, but some of these moves could signal that they're going all in, because I do believe that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan feel with this roster as it's constituted with certain players at key positions that they need to win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I think that they believe that. That's why John Lynch turned down $15 million from Amazon to come back.
It's true.
Because he believes that they need to win a Super Bowl, and that's something that his competitive nature is driving him to do. So signing someone like Stephon Gilmore could go a long way in doing that. I mean, it would be against what they normally do, except for the fact they did bring in Richard Sherman coming off an injury and sign him to what was, a cheaper deal for a veteran, but a move like this helped them get to a Super Bowl. Having one guy on the outside that you knew teams didn't want to target that often. To me, Stephon Gilmore is a better player than Richard Sherman was coming off the Achilles. I think that this would be a great move. You got Richard Sherman out there saying Stephon Gilmore playing for the 49ers or the Seattle Seahawks looks to be the most likely. Mayoko plus Sherman, where there's smoke, there's fire. So pay attention to this. This could be something that happens over free agency.
Agreed with you there, and I think Richard Sherman saying that San Francisco and him wanting to migrate west is the telltale for this. I think it's the telltale for this. I think it's why it's a possibility. I think it's why it's something that fans and faithful Cutback Crew members need to be aware of and thinking about. It is realistic. It is entirely a possibility. Hopefully, you're not having to break the bank in order to do it and accomplish it too much, because it's going to prevent you from re-signing other pieces and keeping that defense deep and strong the way it's been.
Well, let me ask you. Let's say that DJ Jones's number is $8 million.
Okay.
Would you rather have Stephon Gilmore for $8 million?
Gilmore.
Okay, you didn't even have to think.
Yeah.
You'd rather have DJ. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think I would. I would trust Chris Kasarik enough to have Kinlaw ready to go or another defensive lineman ready to go because they could find somebody on the open market. They could bring back Maurice Hurst. They could play Arden Key more snaps on the interior. To me, yeah, I think so.
Maybe go draft a guy too.
Oh, I think they're going to draft somebody.
Yeah, well, there's some guys in the draft I like as well.
I think they'll draft an edge rusher, and I do think they'll draft somebody on the interior.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I think that they're gonna continue to address the defensive line because they know they gotta keep finding guys. But they're also going to be some guys we're going to talk about when we get to other videos about guys who could potentially fill that in the free agency as well.
Agreed with you there, Ant. But speaking of more corners and free agent possibilities, another name that has kind of caught, I think, both of our attentions a little bit, and is some guy that we're thinking about is Chris Harris, former Charger. He's a guy who's 32 years old, getting up there, still played pretty well. Last year missed some games, had some things he was dealing with, but hasn't had a huge injury history. This is a guy that's been healthy, extremely reliable, solid player in the NFL. A guy who breaks up passes, is in the right spots. Why do you think it's possible? Do you think he fits in the scheme-wise, A or B? And then do you think money-wise the Niners can make this work? He is 32. He's not playing bad football right now. You would imagine 32 coming into possibly his last time to get paid. Do you think that's important to him, or you think this is a guy who more is looking to win a Super Bowl right now?
He's looking to win a Super Bowl.
Okay.
And if you can sell these guys on the potential of having Stephon Gilmore, and Chris Harris in there, now you're talking about your nickel being taken care of. You're talking about a guy on the outside being taken care of, and then you have some battles on the outside for Emmanuel Mosley, Jason Verrett, whoever you bring back out there. But this would signal going away from K'Wan Williams. This could be a potential upgrade. We don't know. K'Wan Williams hasn't played bad. I know we had some people telling us that he's the worst nickel corner in the league. That's not the case. We know he's played at times in the past game. He's had some struggles. But this could be a signal, right? That once again, if you're going all in for 2 years, you bring Chris Harris in for a couple years, he's chasing a ring, you're chasing a ring, it just makes sense. But yeah, you would bring this guy in knowing that the veteran leadership that he would bring on the interior is going to be nice. I think K'Wan Williams is still in the mix, but I think those two guys both make sense for this 49ers defense. And I think that having him in the nickel and somebody like a Stephon Gilmore on the outside, to me, makes a lot of sense. The only other way I could see them not going this route is if Jason Verrett or Emmanuel Mosley end up being the nickel guy. But K'Wan Williams, I think, is the most up-in-the-air corner of the 49ers corners.
Agreed with you there. And look, I think that, there were a handful of games coverage-wise where he had some issues and struggled, but K1 still adds a level to this defense that not a lot of people necessarily appreciate or understand. His run fits for us in the run game, his ability to blitz off the edge and the way to use him as sort of almost a stunt at times, because they bring him on the interior with blitzes, they bring him off the edge as well, delay him. There's so many different ways that DeMeco Ryans showed that he can use K1. It's really hard to sit there and think K1 won't be around, but at the same time, you may be looking to upgrade production. Maybe looking to get a little bit more in the passing area. And if that's what you're looking for, Chris Harris could potentially provide that. However, what you just said also brings true, and is something 49ers fans need to keep in mind. Right? If the idea is you're going to bring in Stephon Gilmore and upgrade the outside, then bringing back Jason Verrett, people will be like, well, what's the purpose? Well, move him on the interior. Put him in the slot. Jason Verrett in the slot would be fantastic. And people are like, well, he's not really a slot corner. Jason Verrett can play pretty much anywhere on the field.
Yeah.
You can put him anywhere. He's fast enough.
Yeah.
He's shown he has the skill set, and it doesn't put you in a box. And Chris Harris isn't going to do that either. He's not necessarily going to put you in the box in terms of zone coverage and things of that nature, which is what you're looking for if you're DeMeco Ryans. You don't want to be a team that has to sit in zone. You want to be able to sit in zone when you want to, show zone, go man when you need to, and be able to diversify. Keep that defense and the secondary being able to do a multitude of different things and keep teams on their toes.
Yeah, Jason Verrett affords you a lot of opportunities. Him and Emmanuel Mosley both being able to have the flexibility to go inside. Stephon Gilmore can travel all over if that was someone you're interested in. But let's talk about the guys who are on the roster or could be on the roster. If you bring in Jason Verrett back, you're right. He can play anywhere. He can play in the nickel corner. He could play outside. He could play free safety. I always thought if he could stay healthy, he could translate into that. He's got a little bit of that Tyrann Mathieu in him. He's very physical at the point of attack. He can definitely help in the run. He's a good tackler, but he's a great cover guy. So I think he's somebody that can translate to a bunch of different positions for your roster. So yeah, I to bringing him back is a lot of value, especially at $3 million. So I think there's going to be decisions to be made. I don't think K'Wan Williams is going to have a huge market out there. So if you want to bring him back, I think they can. The question is, would they rather have a Jason Verrett or would they rather have K'Wan Williams? I think they would actually value Jason Verrett more in that situation because he can play inside and outside, where K'Wan Williams can only play inside.
Accurate there, Ant. Very, very accurate. He's put in a box. He's limited in terms of his role, what you can have him do. we'll see. And Chris Harris, still a possibility as well. Who's another name that's out there that you're thinking about the Niners could bring in?
DJ Reed. I think DJ Reed's a guy that the 49ers didn't want to lose. He had the injury, and they tried to take a risk and move him to the IR, and because they did it, he got claimed by the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks, played him on the outside, and he played a lot of downs for them, and he played at a high level. But he's somebody that the 49ers could bring in. They're very aware of who he is, considering they drafted him, and he can play outside and inside. He's another guy with a great flexibility. The question is, do you want to pay him the money that he's going to probably get on the open market? I'm sure he's going to get a decent amount. I would be shocked if it's anything less than what Emmanuel Moseley is going to get, the $6.5 million, because there is a little bit of hype surrounding him. But him coming back to the Bay, a couple of tweets that he's made where things are going full circle, it's kind of crazy. I would guess that means that he's hearing at least rumblings that the 49ers would be interested in bringing him in. I know 49er fans would really love bringing him in, but he's a guy who competes at a high level. He makes plays. He's one of those guys that creates turnovers. So I think that he's somebody you have to keep an eye on. You couple that with he could be a mid-level type guy, not going to break the bank, but he's going to make a decent sum. Could be someone 49ers are interested in bringing in.
Agreed with you, Ant. He's 25 years old.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that. This guy is not he's not a ceiling. He's not necessarily his prime. He's coming into his own. The big thing with DJ Reed that I've seen a lot of people is the size. 5'9" stature, and people go, "Oh, that's a little short," and all that stuff. I don't really care about that. I don't care about that in a corner. I care about you being in the right spot, you being able to go up in space, be physical, do all the things necessary to keep yourself in place. DJ does all of those things, and he's coming into his own. And you're right, he is going to be a mid-level guy. He's not going to accrue a lot of cap space and a lot of cap casualty. You can do some light stuff with him this year and backload that contract down the road. You can also sign him to a little bit longer contract if you'd like, because of the age. Because he's 25 years old and still coming into his own and understands the scheme and philosophy already in San Francisco. This is something that you could take a little bit of a longer term risk on and put some money a little bit further down the road, and maybe some non-guaranteed money as well. So that way you protect yourself, but also make sure this guy has the ability to get paid if he turns into something nice for you down the road.
He's actually a better fit for this current 49ers roster than he was for the one with Robert Saleh, where he was drafted, where he was more pigeonholed into playing the nickel role. But on this team and the way that they've went away from the cover three, the traditional way they were building it with the tall corners and all that Kilo Witherspoons, they've went to more, smaller corners. Jason Verrett, smaller. Emmanuel Moseley, smaller. Ambry Thomas, 6 foot. Diamador Lenore, smaller. All these guys are 6 foot and under. So I think the big corner thing has kind of, trended out here in San Francisco. So I think DJ Reed makes sense. And as long as you're on your guy in the right spot and you make that player go make a big time play, I think you're okay with that. It's just, you can't consistently get beat. I don't care if you're 6'2", 6'3", or, 5'9". Go out there and compete. And I like guys that go out there and compete. So this is kind of the trend of what the 49ers are looking for in a cornerback. So, yeah, he makes sense.
It does, Ant. 22 games started the last 2 seasons, 17 pass breakups.
Yeah.
That's nice. Those are nice numbers. I like that. I like those numbers, those stats there. What do you think that number is going to be from him? Because a lot of places don't really have anything. He made $920K last year. He doesn't have a lot of career earnings. 4 years, $2.7 million is roughly what he's pulled in. Do you think the Niners could bring him in around that $5.5-6 million range?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a $4 to $6 million range.
Okay.
That like the Emmanuel Moseley's getting 6.5. I think anywhere near that. This is a starting corner in the league. He should be, paid as that level, but he's a mid-level guy. He's not a high-end guy that's going to get double-digit amount of money. So I do think $4 to $6 million is kind of what you're looking at for DJ Reed, and there's a lot of value there. Like you said, he's 25 years old. He's not somebody at the end of the rope, so he could be somebody the Niners target for sure.
Agreed with you there. And speaking of mid-level guys, Ant, another name that has recently, not since, but recently popped up in conversations and discussions, and the Niners being a team that are interested in this man, Charvarius Ward from Kansas City. A little bit of an interesting one. I don't think either one of us thought this would be a possibility or a guy that the Niners would be looking at. But he's 6'1". He's 195 pounds, Ant. Last season, in 2021, had 10 pass defenses as well. He's only been in the league 4 years, so this is a guy who's fairly young, again, 25 years old, a little bit taller in stature, and has played very solidly for the Kansas City Chiefs. Why is this an option, and do you think that it's specifically salary cap based, and maybe they've seen something on film that makes them think this could work here in San Francisco?
They've definitely seen something on film. I mean, they have a scheme fit ready for him. That's the only reason you would be considering a player, if they fit what you're doing. So I think they're trying to bring in competition. They're trying to insulate themselves in case they do lose people on the outside or aren't able to get a big fish. I mean, that's one of the things you have to be prepared for. If you're not, able to get a Stephon Gilmore, if you can't convince him to take $8 million in his first year or whatever it is, you're going to need to have other options. So yeah, you reach out to other guys potentially. Of course, you can't do it yet, but you put out feelers into the media so that way people know that you're interested in them, and you work back channels and all that stuff. It happens. It's crazy. There's no way that at 12:01 you already had a contract ready to go for some of these star players when you haven't been able to talk to their agents. I think it's hilarious, but I think that he is somebody that they're interested in. And these mid-level guys like him and DJ Reed and a couple other guys, they make sense for the 49ers because you are looking to upgrade that position. And no matter how much Ambry Thomas has developed, if you can get a better player than him right now, you do that and you let him continue to develop. This is one of the things about young players. Yes, young players need to play, but you also need to win. You don't just go out there with a Super Bowl winning caliber football team and play a rookie because he needs snaps. You got to make sure you have the best available player out there, and it may never be Ambry Thomas. I know that's something people don't want to hear, but sometimes these rookies, it may never be them developing past the level of a player ahead of them. It's a risk that comes in, and he's proven to be a good player. Don't get me wrong, but we don't know if he's going to reach a level that's better than Charvarius Ward or better, than some of these other guys like DJ Reed. Because right now DJ Reed has outplayed him. He's played in 22 games as a starter. So I think that Ambry Thomas has that ability, but until then, you have to invest to make sure you have the best available 53 players out there on the roster.
Agreed with you, man. And Charvarius Ward, too, a number that people miss out on sometimes with him is the missed tackle percentage. It's very low. It's significantly low. This is a guy who in open space doesn't miss tackles, which 49ers and cornerbacks love themselves some physical cornerbacks that can come up in space and tackle in the run game and tackle guys underneath. And they love that. This guy does that. He does that in bunches. The only concern I have is can you bring this guy in where it's not going to break the bank? Because Spot Track and a couple other places have that value for him around that $8.5 to $10 million range. That's a lot of money. Now, you can do a lot of cap gymnastics and do things to make it work out, and short term be okay, and long term you worry about it later, sort of things like, right, future San Francisco 49ers front office. That's your problem, not our problem right now. So can it work? Absolutely. Does it make sense? There's definitely things there that make it seem like this could work. And it's a little bit of it's a risk reward, right? It's always a risk reward with some of these things. And he's been a guy who's been up and down. He's been hot and cold. Rookie year in the league, 124.1 passer rating on him. Not great. Second year in the league, 65.2. A lot better.
What
right?
year was that?
That was the 2019 campaign.
So when he had an excellent defensive line.
Correct. The 2020 season, that number jumps all the way back up to 103.1.
Yeah.
Last season, 79.4.
And the defensive line was back in a big way.
There you go.
It's definitely equated to a pass rush.
Agreed. But if he can play that well with the pass rush, we have that here in San Francisco, right? This is part of the reason why it makes sense. You know what his weaknesses are if you're San Francisco. If we can eliminate those weaknesses and get after the quarterback in a big way, this guy can have a lot of success.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you, Alex. Number one, okay. How much of an improvement do you think he is over Ambry Thomas?
In the pass game?
Yeah.
I would say it's noticeable, but I don't know if it's like light years ahead of Ambry Thomas.
Okay, so actually I'm going to add a third question. Do you believe that he would be the number one corner in San Francisco?
I don't.
Because that would be what you're paying him to do.
Correct. If you're paying him that $9 million, $8-9 million.
And then we had the choice with Stephon Gilmore, and you didn't even hesitate.
It's still not going to be a hesitation. If
it's would you rather have Charvarius Ward or DJ Jones?
Probably DJ.
Okay.
Probably DJ.
Yeah, priorities, right? I think.
Well, priorities and also just I've seen.
So you believe there's not a big enough change between Charvarius Ward and Ambry Thomas compared to DJ Jones? You know what I mean? I'm saying value-wise.
Correct.
You're saying there's not that big of a leap that you'd rather have DJ Jones because you know that defensive line could help Ambry Thomas in the same way it would help Charvarius Ward, so you're not willing to pay him $8 million.
Well, it's that compiled with the fact that I have complete faith in Javon Kinlaw still.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that's off the Javon Kinlaw train. This guy can't do anything. He's
I'm
not
not off the train. I think I'm like just waiting because I think this is the year. This
is the year. This is make or break.
I think we don't know what we're going to get yet. I think even the 49ers don't know what they're going to get yet because they haven't seen a healthy Javon Kinlaw. I think there's more questions about Javon Kinlaw, even though he's played football games. I think there might be more questions about him than actually Trey Lance.
I agreed with you on that, actually.
Yeah, because I know what Trey can do physically. I haven't been able to see it from Javon Kinlaw.
No, he's been hampered and limited.
Yeah.
We came in and needed to develop, didn't get the opportunity to do that because he was thrust into a role, got hurt trying to do what was needed for the team, didn't get a clean surgery, had setbacks, and then tried to play through it for most of this season.
I mean, the other thing we'll have to take into account with Stephon Gilmore, I know this isn't a defensive line video, but we'll have to take the account with him is he's also going to be switched to nose tackle because they're going to play Armstead on the inside. So
Accurate.
He's going to switch roles, so you can't expect the high sack numbers. Your numbers that you're looking for him are going to be closer to what DJ Jones does. Those are the numbers you're going to look for this guy to incur. Yes, he should be a better pass rusher. He's big. He's physical. Can he play the run like DJ? I don't know because DJ beat a lot of players with his speed. Stephon Gilmore is going to be more power based. It's going to be a different animal in the way he plays.
Do you mean to tell me, Ant, that some of the free agent signings they're going to be bringing in and guys they're going to be targeting are going to depend on how this D line looks going forward and how much more money they decide to put into it?
Yeah, I think so.
Stunning.
I think DJ Jones, he played so well that they might not be able to bring him back. I mean, he might have played himself right out of San Francisco, and good for him. I mean, he deserves that money.
He does.
But the 49ers had to be ready for a plan, and they're going to have to decide now if they want to put some money into Arden Key as well. So there's big decisions, and all that influences how they attack the cornerback position. But the fact that the 49ers are continually mentioned among the Charvarius Ward, the Stephon Gilmore, it leads you to believe that they are targeting a cornerback to bring in opposite of Emmanuel Mosley, not just Jason Verrett.
You're not wrong there, Ant. And listen, there's plenty of names that guys talk about. There's Casey Hayward, right? There's Casey Hayward Jr. There's guys like Kyle Fuller as well. Desmond King is a name that people are familiar with, played with the Green Bay Packers. There's a lot of these types of names out there. Eli Apples, Mackenzie Alexanders, things like that the Niners could target, could go after. But some of those guys are going to probably make more money and may not be scheme fits. Who's another guy out there? Is there one more guy that you have that you're thinking the Niners could go target and be looking at?
I do think there's somebody that could get cut.
Oh, okay.
I think there's players that could get cut. I think Bradbury could get cut from the Giants.
Okay.
And if he gets cut, then there could be a potential for for players, to be signed. There's going to be lots of guys that get cut before March 16th, because they have to get under that cap. The top 51 player salaries count against your cap, so you need to be able to bring guys in. So there's going to be corners that ultimately get cut, and the 49ers could be one of the teams that maybe know something's going to happen and are waiting for it.
And are waiting to pounce.
Yeah.
You're not wrong there, Ant. I wasn't thinking about that. You're one step ahead here in the free agency realm, but the reality is, right, is just that. Teams have to make moves. And you got teams like the Saints who have still lots of moves to make, and now rumors and reports that they're looking at Jimmy Garoppolo and what that could possibly mean and how much even more cap they would have to save to accomplish it, Ant. There are tons of names out there. And there's names that 49ers fans don't want to talk about. And there's guys that are not looking at. There's even young guys still out there coming up and guys who have shown promise in other places. So there's names aplenty in free agency this year. Plenty. Darius Williams from the Rams. You still have guys like Trey Flowers, who are a name that people still think could be something, even though he's getting up almost to 29 years old at this point. There's the Eli Apples of the world, who are hungry and want to prove something, even though they were burnt toast in the playoffs for the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a lot of names. There's a lot of ways the 49ers can go about it, and we've given you just a few, and the names that we've given you are the names that we think are the most likely the 49ers could be at least looking at and could be going after. There is one more name I wanted to bring up and talk to you about. I don't think it's likely because of his age, how long he's been in the league, and just what he can do now in the league. Joe Hayden was a name that we talked about last year and got brought up as the Niners should trade for him. It's a veteran presence. It would shore up the room. I don't know. Do you think as a free agent, Joe Hayden would be a positive benefit, net positive for the 49ers? And what do you think that number would look like?
I do think he would be a net positive. Okay. The question is, are you going to be willing to pay the amount of money that he needs to make? I don't know if you're going to pay somebody that's been in the league as long as he is to come out and play corner. I don't know. I don't know what his number would be either, but I'm guessing it would be as high or higher than Charvarius Ward. So I would be reluctant to make that move. But if you feel that is the best situation for your team, then I think you're going to do it. But I wouldn't, because I wouldn't want to pay that money to a cornerback on the outside like Joe Hayden when I could pay more defensive linemen to get after the pass rush and just roll with Ambry Thomas.
I do agree with you there. He's coming off of the least amount of games played in his career, other than the 2015 season where he had a very severe injury. It's the second most games he's played in his second least amount of games, that he's played in his career. Numbers were a little bit lower. Gave up his worst pass rating in the past 5 seasons this past year. And he's getting up there in age. He's going to be 33 years old. He's an older guy in this league, and he's played a lot of snaps. This is a guy, he's seen a lot, yes, but he's played a lot as well. And there's a reason that the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't running and jumping to necessarily bring this guy back into the fold and have him back here. They may feel like, that time is up and the time has passed for a guy like DJ Hayden. The experience, absolutely wonderful. What he can bring to your room in terms of a mentor, that mentor aspect, absolutely phenomenal. It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong there. But this isn't a guy who's probably at a point right now where he's sitting there going, hey, I'm willing to take the league minimum with some accelerators to be here. I don't think he's ring chasing. I don't think he's at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he's at. I do know, though, that if you're going to pay someone a lot of money, they have to be, a shutdown guy on the outside.
Oh, okay.
They have to be ready to take things to another level. I just don't know if he's that guy at this point in his career.
No, I agree with you there.
I think there's some decisions on some older veterans. I think there is veterans, older guys at certain positions, especially cornerback, that are enticing because you remember who they were, but are they the same sort of player? Are they still able to play at that high level?
Close enough.
Yeah.
Because, I think most people know, right? The older you get, the harder it is to continue to be the young, athletic, whippersnapper you once were. I think most people
mean when you get older, it's harder to be young?
Oh, man, stunned.
That's shocking, Alex.
Dynamite drop in there for me. What an absolutely incredible insight and take. Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm all here for it. So, look, we'll see what happens. We'll see how the Niners go to plan about addressing the cornerback room. Is it free agency? Is it the draft? We're going to wait and see. We're going to wait and find out. But, Ant, free agency is just around the corner. And if you want more free agent content, you know right where to be, right here on the 49ers Cutback. We got tons more free agency videos coming your way. You're not going to want to miss any of it. And the best way not to miss it, Ant, is for them to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button and then smash that notification bell afterwards.
Yeah, and if you're listening to on the audio platforms, do us a favor and leave a review. Rate the episode and let everyone know how you feel about the 49ers Cutback. We'd really appreciate it, and that really helps us out a lot. But there's going to be a lot of fun conversations about these, free agents where we're just getting into it. So there's a lot of opportunities for the 49ers to go out there and improve their football team, and that's what this is about, improving your football team. And then once we know what some of the holes that have been filled, we'll know what exactly the 49ers are going to do in the draft.
Oh, and we can start putting out mock drafts and actual other things because we know who they've signed, they know what they're targeting, and we can make realistic mock drafts.
Yes, we're waiting for that because free agency, believe it or not, has to happen first.
I'm not surprised. I know you're not surprised. I know the Cutback crew is not surprised, but that may shock some fans out there and maybe shock some 49ers fans out there.
I just think people love the draft, Alex. I mean,
I don't blame them.
Full in draft mode.
I don't blame them. I'm in draft mode.
We have a lot of things that are gonna have to happen. Number one, free agency has to happen. Then number two, Jimmy Garoppolo has to get moved.
That's accurate.
Once Jimmy gets moved, we'll know what draft picks are available. That'll also change some things.
Also, are they getting a player back in return?
Yeah, could be. There could be a lot of things that are playing into this. We'll see.
We're going to find out. Cutback crew, if there's any corners that you want us to talk about specifically, maybe even do a video on in this free agency class before free agency comes out, leave it in the comment section down below right now. Let's have this conversation. We'll catch you on the next episode. And until that time, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.